Okay, so I got a proposal for a change to DAZ Studio, to a feature that I've been using for so much time already, and that is Powerpose. And yeah, we go into Powerpose. Um, I've been asking for a change like this for years, and so far it's only fallen on deaf ears. I've been asking on the forums, I've been posting bug reports throughout the years, and usually just got basically wished away, and basic responses like, yeah, we are on it, and we have gotten some stuff from people all over the place that something needs to be changed. And I think there was some type of an overhaul with Powerpose like a while ago that was like really, there was like really drum rolls about it, like, yeah, we finally heard you and we did something about it. But I fear that you didn't really understand what it was that users really wanted to be changed, because the way Powerpose currently works and always has been working, I believe you just changed the layouts and the mappings so that it actually works with most figures, which is commendable, it's good, it's all good. But I think what most people wanted was to have more control when using Powerpose, because right now when you're using Powerpose, you have this weird thing that you can just use one mouse button by dragging, for example, left mouse button, and you have this like wiggly thing by just controlling two axes at once, which looks kind of nice for just presentation purposes. If you want to show somebody like, yeah, you can easily change this, it's fantastic. But it doesn't really give you too much control. It's kind of nice and okay for roughing out stuff, but you don't really have control because it's so hard to just move in one direction. On these axes here, it looks okay, but it's already, if you look at the parameters pane, on this one it seems to be okay, and I can hardly see that the twist moves too much when you look at this over the right. But you always have like one axis or two axes on the same button. Same way for like the right mouse button, as you can see here. It does side, and bend in one, depending on if you go right and left, up and down. But really, this is very, very wobbly. Also, another thing is, since it's very hard for the users to really draw this straight line, when you really want to have this control and make it like really nice to just affect one axis, you can barely do it. But if you want to do it, you just have to like really concentrate on moving on the pane, basically, to see, oh yeah, am I doing actually a straight line? That way you lose focus of what you actually want to do, because you want to look at the viewport. But since you're focusing so much on drawing the straight line, yeah, it's really hard to do. So your eyes are just like constantly confused where to look in order to get this done correctly. So that's really tough to do, and it shouldn't be like that. One of the other things that is always a bit confusing is the way the axis mapping is handled. I mean, for most of the figure, it's okay, because you usually have the expected thing, like bend is this axis, like what's the axis? Let's see. It's the x-axis is actually the bend. And on the, like, all the core things like that are aligned to the world axis, basically on the vanilla state, it's the same. That's totally cool. And like here, of course, it changes a little bit. The expected movement now is the z-axis, I guess. Yeah, the z-axis is now the bend, which is totally cool. And I commend this, that you did it like this, and keep it like the bend. This is totally fine, even though it's a different axis now. But it's still the expected movement. That's cool. Also here, it's also the same still. The bend is still on the x-axis, on the z-axis, but now, due to the 90-degree axis change, it's now a different axis. I think it's now the y-axis. And when you're now doing the up and down movement with the left mouse button, it's all of a sudden it's twisting and not bending anymore. This is like super weird and super confusing for the user, that all of a sudden for this joint it changes completely from what he expects. So this one should already be swapped, so that when you do now side it's the bend. It should be the opposite. It should still be bending like up and down. And that's the one consistency that I 100% knew of right now. But what I think would really make this thing really usable for a lot of control is either to change it fundamentally into just having per axis movements, similar to when you do it in the parameters pane. So for example, in the parameters pane, you can only affect one axis with your mouse movements. And that way you have a lot of control. You know what you're doing and what you're getting from it by doing this. You see it instantly, you know what you get, and that's the thing that gives you the most control about it. If you want to be very precise, for example, if the figure wants to grab something, somebody, or hold on to something, you know, that you need the control. You can't pose by just like wobbling it into place and hoping that it works. It just doesn't work. It's always frustrating because you need way more time to just do it individually. So my proposal is to split this in a persistent way, similar that you have already done it, but keep it to one axis only, so that whenever the user holds the left mouse button, it should always be bent. No matter what joint it is that you're affecting, it should always be up and down movement, and dragging the left mouse button should always be bending, no matter what joint. And of course fix the inconsistency here in this joint, because on this joint it's like confusing. And then when you are doing the same thing with the right mouse button, it should always enter into a twisting movement, since this is usually the logical secondary movement of any joint is usually the twisting motion. And you have it here on just the same button, but this should happen only for the twisting motion on every joint if you're doing this with the right mouse button pressed. And then every mouse has a middle mouse button, and that should be the tertiary action, and usually the side-side movement should be, and only the side-side movement, no other movement. I mean, you have a blueprint basically, let's see, which one was it? I believe on, yeah, this one. The color movement, you already have this at least for the twist, because the twist only does the twist. If you are doing the right mouse button and you're doing the twisting motion, there's no other. If you're doing it like in the left or right movements, there's no other axis affected. I mean, it wiggles a slight bit here because I'm not able to draw a straight line like an idiot. But if you're doing the movement like up and down, it actually only does this. Please do this for all the joints. Split it so that only one axis gets affected by the movements, by the dragging movements, because that way you have much control. I do understand that what I'm proposing is maybe not everyone's cup of tea, because there's a lot of casual users that use the software. I totally understand that, and they probably are used to it by now, that they have this like lazy movement basically to just rough out stuff quickly. And I think, yeah, in some cases it's actually good to have it like this, but you can still give the same thing to users that actually want to have more control by, I don't know, maybe putting a checkbox here and being able to enter like into a precise mode and then have the mapping swapped. If I could change the mappings myself, I would have already done it, but I'm not a DAZ scripter or anything like that. So, and I'm not even sure if this is even possible to do, to basically change this with simple scripting. Not sure if this is even open enough. I know that there were Powerpose templates that you could use, but I believe you couldn't really change the mapping themselves. It was basically just able to edit the puppet modes and stuff like this, and put the joints somewhere else and the points for it. But yeah, that would be a very easy change. I don't think this is like something that you really need more than an hour of time to put a developer on it, to just reassign the mappings and just split them so that just one button affects only one axis. And then maybe take a look into the forums, ask people around if they want to keep the old version, the legacy version. And if they do, you can always just make it a toggle, or maybe just make it a download for power users to have this precise mode, that it only works for those people who really want it. Because I work with DAZ Studio for more than 10 years now. I've been working with it professionally, let's say semi-professionally. I'm selling image series every now and then. I've been working with this daily. I know my way around the software. I know so many ways to fix things that are super annoying about the software, and I usually help myself, but this is one of the main things that hasn't been addressed yet, even though people have been asking for better control and better ways to post the figures in a smoother and more elegant way. I'm giving you the blueprint right here. This is the way to do it to satisfy a lot of users who are not just trying to casually do something every now and then, but for people who are working with the software day in and day out. And yeah, it's been frustrating. I've gone to basically just not pose with Powerpose that much anymore, and just using the parameters pane, because that's where you really have the control. But the problem with that is, of course, you're always moving the mouse around, clicking, then moving here and moving back and forth, and that's also not very satisfying and actually pretty sluggish to use, instead of being able to just drag here and have everything in one place, have your mouse in the same spot. That's just way more control, like basically direct control, without too many extra clicks. And that would be my solution to fix one of the main problems with posing in DAZ Studio.